Everyone. It's so good to meet you. My name's Nicole Rodrigues, and I've been in PR, marketing, and communications for 24 years now. I graduated from San Jose State with a degree in public relations and a minor in communications. And so I started my sort of marketing career in public relations and in Silicon Valley, naturally. I got my MBA from UCLA. I
It's
had
not
a,
going to be a big deal, right?
what's it called? An
You can
affinity
just leave it
towards
on and just turn it
entrepreneurship,
down. Yeah.
and
Good.
understanding the journey of an entrepreneur, and how marketing and PR actually fits very beautifully in that journey. And so, yeah, so starting from the beginning, I guess, graduating from San Jose State, I naturally got into tech. And I realized that I loved tech because I loved being ahead of the curve. None of my friends really knew what was happening, and I get to give them the heads up on, did you know this is happening? And email's a big thing. Do you have an email address? And it literally was, around that time when I started. And then I wanted to take my knowledge into a area I was passionate about. And so I started working for the Oakland Raiders and doing PR for them. And then 3 seasons later, realized I do love the Raiders, but I also missed being ahead of the curve when it came to knowing what was happening in tech and knowing that there was a lot of like merging between entertainment and technology. They were all coming together. So it was right around the time when YouTube launched and it was a brand new thing. And people were just watching cat videos and wondering, is this ever going to really take off? I remember working at the Raiders and having my boss come up to me and say, did you hear this Twitter thing? Should we get a Twitter? And then having to figure that out. So naturally finding that my PR, and communications skills really did translate into the wider marketing scope, because really at the end of the day, you're communicating to your audiences. So fast forward, I started working at a company called Moby TV, which is the reason why all of you guys can watch live TV on your cell phones. They invented it. So me and my boss at the time were the only mobile publicists in the whole United States. So as you can imagine, that opened up a lot of doors for me work-wise, because once Moby TV took off and we won an Emmy, I worked on that application. I started doing PR for companies like Hulu and YouTube and MGO and writing, PR and strategies for them, right? Helping them understand where it was going. I was literally at Hulu's very first holiday party. It was a very small handful of us, and we went bowling and drank beer. Like, that's how small they were. So it was really cool. And a lot of friends of mine from Moby TV went on to work at Hulu and Netflix and all of that. So yeah, it's been a beautiful journey over, more than 2 decades. And I would have to say that as a PR person and a marketing, mind, one thing that I think is important before we start diving into the presentation is helping you guys really understand where the web and marketing and tools have been, to really understand where they're going and where you guys need to start sort of slowly paying attention, because this is now Web 3.0 is going to be your life, right? No matter what, we're already in it's almost like when I entered after graduation, it was Web 1.0. And what I mean by that, does anyone have any, maybe a guess on why they would call it Web 1.0? Well, so yeah, that, but just with any iteration, when you download an app, when you go on a website, when you launch a first thing, it's like the first iteration of it. So imagine the World Wide Web is now available to everyone. This is before you guys are born, right? And people are trying to figure out what the heck we can do with it. And Web 1.0, to your point, was talking to your audience. There wasn't any interaction. And if you were interacting with anything, you're maybe chatting, but you're chatting with friends online. You're not chatting with brands. So brands would launch a website, And they would even write press releases about it. We just launched our first website, like it was something grand. But that was because it wasn't common. So it was like we put all of these resources into a website, right? And that website would have information. So you could go stumble upon it, read that information, but there really wasn't any interaction with the brand. If you wanted to call and complain, you literally would pick up the phone and call, or you fax in a complaint, or maybe you might send a customer service email, right? So this is Web 1.0, and this is basically when I graduated from college. This was, what we knew. So when people would find out news, they weren't going online to read the news. They were waiting for the hard copy magazine or the newspaper to get delivered to them. So when people had news, or something to share, you would fax that into the press, you'd call the press, you'd sit and talk to the press, and then they'd put that in that hard copy. And I remember executives were like, well, we don't care if this story ends up online. I want this to be in the paper. It is completely opposite now, right? People are getting all their news online and sometimes just getting it on social platforms. So fast forward to Web 2.0, basically as we're all on 5G networks now, right? So as the networks expanded and the speed of information basically increased, we're able to then figure out, well, now what can the internet do? And as marketers, we started learning about Twitter, YouTube, social media platforms, like what is that? And even online forums, different places where, like Yelp, you could read reviews of basically what people are saying about you, and then you can have some, build programs around making sure that those reviews are really good and that your ratings are high, right? But at the end of the day, what happened in Web 2.0 is you got open dialogue with your customers. Sometimes it's not always a great thing, right? You're like, oh, this guy just went on Twitter and went on a huge, rant. And so as marketers, the thing now is that the internet never sleeps. So that's also how I got into crisis communications, right? Somebody goes out and tweets something, or you represent a celebrity or brand and they put something out on Twitter that is massively offensive, you're automatically in a crisis situation. So again, as marketers, understanding that Web 2.0 opened up the dialogue, but it also opened up the fact that it now became a 24-hour, you need to just watch things kind of situation. Moving into now Web 3.0, consumers have gotten more savvy about the fact that their data is now being shared and that their data is not as protected as one would think, even when you are opting in and out of certain things. As long as you're holding onto a phone, or you have a laptop or a desktop still, or any connected device, you are a number, and that data is being shared. And yes, you have certain controls over what will be, but Web 3.0, what that is promising to be is more of a decentralized situation where instead of one mothership like a Facebook or a Google or these big companies owning all of that data, and that's how they make their money, right? Facebook didn't become huge overnight because they gave a bunch of free accounts away. No, they got all the free accounts and they collected all of the data, and they know what an 18-year-old girl who lives in Mississippi is usually doing around this time, so they could get that to brands. Brands then pay for it to make sure they're getting in front of that 18-year-old girl in Mississippi who's maybe into lipstick, and then they tell all of the beauty and lifestyle brands, so that the beauty and lifestyle brands then pay Facebook, and then it just becomes this way that Facebook centralizes that data, owns it, and then brands then pay for it while you guys are all playing on these social platforms for free, right? So what Web 3.0 is promising is more automation, more decentralization, more of a universal sort of control situation, even though at the end of the day, data is still king and data is what makes companies pay. That's how these companies make money. So they're figuring out now how to tokenize things so that you can earn alongside your customers. So you're not relying so much on selling data in order to make money. The other thing too, Web 3.0, there are new platforms. So I don't know how many of you guys have used VR, headsets. Also platforms like multiverse and metaverse, and there are places where your avatar can go and live and play and be all that you've ever wanted to be in another virtual world. So that's another place that you would be marketing to people, right? So that's actually going to be a thing, a place where you're buying digital assets. So maybe you have a pair of, what are the Adidas here in real life, but really what you want are some, like, I don't know, Air Jordans that actually do make you fly. Well, they sell them in the metaverse and they're $1,000. They're more expensive sometimes than if you were to get it in real life, right? But this is where brands are going. And this is what brands are planning to do. They're going to market to avatars, because avatars are more aspirational. You can be whatever you want to be. And, which means that people will be willing to pay money for that. So these are all things that as marketers, you guys are going to have to keep in mind, because they're building a whole new world that's not even physical, where brands are going to be paying for billboards, paying for, space to get in front of consumers. So it's pretty wild to know some of the ideas that are floating around out there, but it'll be an exciting time, and definitely something that that you guys should be aware of. So with that being said, before I keep going a little, there it is. Before I go, do you guys have any questions about Web 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 before I move forward? Is all of that kind of making sense in terms of the evolution? And yeah, okay, great. So why is it important that, I don't know, that I'm talking to you today and that, Professor West brought me here, is because it's important for you guys to know, as marketers or people who are going to be starting businesses or even in sales, to know what's at your fingertips for free. And you should understand how those free platforms also make money and work with brands, because you're also going to be making decisions about whether or not to get pro accounts or put a little bit of money towards having a different experience, a more vast experience with some of these platforms. So there are a few likely scenarios that you guys are going to hit at some point in your guys' careers, right? So you're either going to be an entrepreneur. How many people here want to start a business? Okay, awesome. So you might also first be asked to be a marketing lead within an organization. And they're likely going to say, well, we want you to be in charge of marketing, but your budget's really small, so figure it out. So you're going to have to know what you can, basically have in your back pocket to save resources, but still be effective, because ultimately you're going to be measured on whether or not that free idea worked, right? The other thing is, if you're in sales, you want to understand how the marketing team is functioning, what the marketing team is using, because ultimately marketing and sales have to be talking to each other. If marketing's driving leads, sales has to close. And if the sales team is recognizing, these leads aren't coming in, or these leads are really weak, right? Then you guys need to be able to be on the same page. And if you're coming in from the sales side and saying, hey, have you considered this? And the marketing team's like, wow, you know what? I didn't even know that existed. Well, then you're helping each other, right? Help me, help you kind of situation. So it's important, no matter what hat you're going to be wearing, that you are aware of free tools, and even, tools that have very sort of small price points that you can grow with. So how many of you guys recognize some of these logos here? I'll admit LinkedIn is missing from this, but it should be, as well as like Sales Navigator, right? Which is part of LinkedIn. But so do you guys recognize these logos here? Yeah. Does anyone want to share whether or not you've used any of these platforms personally or even professionally, maybe in an internship? Yeah. Which ones?
Obviously, like TikTok, Instagram, Twitter.
Personally and professionally, or just personally?
Yeah, all
Okay.
professionally. Like, you have to. So I do media,
Mhm.
so like commercial music videos. And we have to like format and have our deliverables be able to be posted on all those different sites.
Mhm.
They have different aspect ratios and different like resolutions.
Mhm. Definitely. And I'm sure do you use Hootsuite or Sprout Social for timing and planning? Or do you just use the native tools?
No, we give it to their team for them to post at the time that they want, but they have to organize that with everyone.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so they're organizing the editorial calendar. Yeah. Okay, and then they just put in requests to you. Okay, yeah. So and then they work it up to the powers that be to get it approved, and then likely we'll use a Hootsuite or a Sprout Social to time it and basically schedule everything. Great, very good. Anybody else use any of these tools or personally, professionally? Yes, no? Okay. I see a head shake back there. You're against social media? Okay, none. Got it. Okay. So I will give you guys a little bit of a background on my company. So we are celebrating 10 years. Although I've been in marketing and communications for 24, my company that I started 10 years ago, I registered the business in March of 2014. We officially launched in June of 2014. So as you can imagine, there was work that needed to be done, right? And being the natural marketer that I am, and being a new entrepreneur with no marketing budget, right? I started this company by myself with my own money. So I had to bootstrap. So if you guys are embarking on a business venture and you're in my shoes, you have very little marketing money, but you need to be making money in order to basically survive and build your business, what is it that you guys would do first to get your business going, other than registering it and making sure you have a good accountant?
Just like building like a brand identity, so like knowing who your target audience is and what they like and what their interests are. So like first start from this customer and like figure out what they like and try to emulate that.
Sure. And even before that, right, I had to register my business with my name. What did I have to do before deciding on my name, thinking like a marketer? Mhm.
Like all the profiles.
Yeah.
Registered.
So tying back to knowing where my customers likely would be, I thought, well, if I have the attention span to maybe focus on 3 or 4 social media sort of channels, Instagram, because I know a lot of my new hires are likely there. Facebook, because I know I can naturally market to people I used to work with there and my friends and family. LinkedIn, because naturally that's where I'll probably see a lot of clients, and Twitter, because a lot of media are on Twitter. So that's how I decided which 4. But then what I had to do was make sure that the name of my company, NRPR Group, was basically available for these Web 2.0 platforms, because that's where most people are, right? And then I had to decide on my URL. I had to make sure nrprgroup.com was available and pay the $5 to GoDaddy to make sure I had it, right? So registering a business with the state and basically the IRS and, even your city, I had to register it. We're headquartered in Beverly Hills, had to let them know. You have to make sure that that name, your identity, like you're naming your baby, is going to stick and that it can work. So thinking about that as an entrepreneur and as a marketer, understanding how important your identity is going to be on each of these free platforms is just as important as, you know, making sure that you really understand your audience. You have to know where they're going to be, right? So that's important. And then from there, your logo, right? You have to put a face on your child, right? Your baby needs a face because it's going to go on these platforms. So what are your colors? What is that going to look like? Does it stand out? Does it look good amongst other, you know, potential logos? Because you're going to need to capture the attention of people, right? So then I had to do what? So now I'm on Instagram, Twitter, put my logo on it, and I have my name. I'm on all these platforms and I have a website. So I'm basically kind of like Web 1.0 because I haven't done what yet? That's right. I haven't started talking to create a loop with my customers. So I had to do what? I had to create content. I had to think about it, schedule it, get, you know, basically at that point, I could actually use Hootsuite for free. I didn't need a pro account. But what other one of these platforms would you say probably helped me as a solopreneur at that time? To get to the second step. That's right, Canva. So when I was in college, I'll be completely honest, I had to take a, you know, a web coding class because it's like, well, you need to know how these websites come together, right? And I was trash. I was so bad. It was just bad. And then I tried to take a class with like Photoshop, just as bad. So thank you, Canva, for allowing me to feel like I could create things for free, right? I didn't have the money to create content for free. But again, as a marketer, how do I find the resources and the platforms that are going to help me then speak to my audience? So again, I had to not only be on these free platforms, but I had to create content for them. And Canva is a really great way to start that, right? The other one was MailChimp, right? There were ways that I was able to just let friends know through email, another Web 1.0 tool, to let them know, hey, I'm starting this business. Here's the link to my website. Can I put you on my newsletter list? And then if you think of anybody else that you think should be getting PR updates and whatever, please, you know, invite them to subscribe. So MailChimp was a really great tool. I went from maybe like 15 people to start, like friends, grandma, you know, adding them to the newsletter list to, you know, now 10 years later, we have like $3,500, 3,500 people on our MailChimp list, right? People who have now opted in, who are following in our PR, who are interested in what we do in our newsletter, which is really great. All organic. I have not had to pay for followers. So again, these are things that, you know, you want to keep in mind, because when someone is counting on you to drive sales leads and you can do that for very little money, then they're going to trust you when they finally do have budgets to give you things, right? That you're looking out and being cost conscious. So yeah, Canva is amazing. Hootsuite is great. And so is Sprout Social. Oftentimes though, now you're paying for a pro account, right? Now they know corporations need the ability to be able to schedule, remove, update, do all of those things, and track analytics. How many of you guys are familiar with analytics in general when it comes to marketing? Yeah, what is it that, what do you know? Mm-hmm. And what platforms have they talked to you about? Mm-hmm. Okay, coding, so like more web development ish. Okay, anyone else? Mm-hmm. And what words to use? Right. So that's all huge, because that's how you basically experiment. So when he's saying what works, what doesn't, there's a lot of A and B testing, right? A scenario versus B scenario, which is the one that's basically going to drive more leads. So you want to use analytics to make smarter decisions on each of the platforms that you are basically utilizing to get in front of customers, right? So data is king, and that's why it's so hard for some of these companies to go away from tracking everybody's data, because on one end, knowing your preferences helps brands sell better to you, right? Is there a hobby that you absolutely despise? That you're like, please, I never want to snowboard. I don't know. You never want to hike. Now, what if I'm a brand that, because data isn't allowed, and I don't know, I'm not tracking your data, I'm going to just guess that because you live in California and that's the only thing I know about you, you probably like to hike. You're going to be like, I hate this brand. REI, never, right? So there are some good reasons, right, why certain amounts of your data could be, useful for brands to have. But again, as we sort of, as we think about that, from analytics to data, all they're helping brands and people do is hopefully make smarter decisions, right? I think a lot of people have this like, well, they're going to come and find. Most of these companies don't know your name. They're not looking at you specifically. They're looking, you're A56728, blah, blah, blah. And that's how they know you, right? And they know that these are your most likely times to be online, most likely the items you might buy when you're online, brands you might search for, people that you might follow. Again, all of those, the data analytics, all of those things come together to help brands basically say, okay, well, then here's my pile of money, Facebook or Google. Here's this pile of money. Make sure I'm in front of all the people that basically look like you online, right? You guys have similar hobbies and you connect to what it is I'm trying to sell. So that's why it's important for you guys to know that part of marketing is creative. Another part of it is just being creative with your budget. Another part of it is understanding data, analytics, where you go to find them and where you go to house them, meaning where you keep all of that. So that takes us to, places like HubSpot. How many of you are familiar with HubSpot? I think. Okay. Who's on the HubSpot team? All right. Well, tell me what you know. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. Amongst internal, external. Okay. As an email, right? Anything else? Okay, well, so a CRM, like I said, it's kind of like a house where you entrap the data of customers that you're basically trying to manage, right? So you put it all in here and then you decide, okay, in this room, we want to make sure that these people are going to get this email. And then we're going to see how they react to that, right? See how many of those cold leads or those early leads turned into a sale. And they track all of that for you so that you can, again, make decisions. So it's like, okay, people over here, they're going to get the newsletters that hit on Monday about XYZ because we know this about them. right? And oftentimes, have you guys heard of Salesforce too, just in general? That's like a massive, like Salesforce is a big customer relationship management sort of giant, right? HubSpot, I think, is definitely more marketer friendly and sales friendly for sure. But it's important that you guys know who falls into the CRM category, because you have to understand your customer, what they're doing, and how you're holding on to all of that data. The other thing too, of course, when you're using Google Analytics, which is different because it's not necessarily your specific customers. Have any of you guys looked at Google Analytics like on the back end and understand sort of what it is they track? Yeah. Mhm.
Give like it kind of just pretty much gives you data driven, like it makes you have data driven precision of like your marketing, how everything is going, those areas.
Yeah, and a lot of times Google Analytics really focuses on what at the core? Google Analytics, right, focuses on what at the core? Well, but SEO, because it leads to what? Traffic to your website, right? And then what he said was conversion. Do you guys understand what conversions are? You explain. Yeah. Or sometimes a conversion is, you know what, I really just want, the goal of this campaign is to get people to sign up for our newsletter, right? So we're converting them into users or somebody who's going to continue to basically cycle into our brand. So that's what a lot of the Google Analytics are meant to do, to see, hey, you just did a big PR campaign. You got a lot of press around this thingamajigger that just launched. People are going to your website. You can see basically where they came from. Now, from that article, they were excited about that thingamajigger that just launched. They now went to your website. And then what did they do? They fell off by the time they hit your buy page. And then what does that tell you? That the problem isn't the PR. The problem is the conversion tools on your website. The problem might be your messaging within your website or the sales process. So a lot of the times that's what things like Google Analytics will do for you. It will tell you just how well your website is doing to help convert and where else you can go to get traffic or where you're getting the most traffic. But as less and less people are going to websites and they're going more to, have any of you guys bought anything just strictly from Instagram? No, a lot of people are doing that, right? Where you see sponsored ads and, oh, hey, I just bought this back massager or whatever it is. People are buying it directly from Insta. And so there's specific analytics within Meta, which is Facebook's sort of analytics machine, to see, well, how many people are actually just going straight to Instagram, buying certain things. And then what do? They go back to those brands and say, look, this works. You don't have to drive people to your website. You can just drive them to Instagram and they're going to buy right here. So understanding data, where you can get it and how, and then from there, how you can then further manage your customers, right? Where are you keeping, once somebody makes a purchase on Instagram or your website, are you managing them within a CRM tool, right? So thinking about all of that and how, for the most part, a lot of your customers are coming in using free tools. But the way you as a brand make money is you are also there for free, but you market to them oftentimes with sponsored ads and stuff like that. So just knowing how all of those things work together is really, really important, especially when you're bootstrapping or you have, very little marketing money to create leads. So I'm just trying to think. The other thing, we wanted to talk about Sales Navigator. Are all of you on LinkedIn already? Yes? Okay, good, good. So LinkedIn is very much a B2B platform, right? Oftentimes you're there to learn about companies that you might want to work for, work with, do business with. Your resume is there for the world to see. And what LinkedIn has, are you guys familiar with Sales Navigator? Didn't you say there's a Sales Navigator team? No, there's not. Okay, got it. That's right. Okay. So Sales Navigator is LinkedIn's way of almost making the cold calling process easier. Have any of you guys ever made a cold call? Do you know what that is? What is it? Yeah. So back in the day, you'd get this long list of potential leads. Well, here are all of the people who just bought a new home within the last 4 years. Call them one by one and find out if they want to refinance their home. Take money out of that equity, right? Or, I don't know, your Facebook, you need to call all of these, sports brands because they need to all be buying ads on Facebook. You would make a call to that head of marketing or whatever to get in front of them to see if you can open up the dialogue and get them interested in then advertising on the platform. So what LinkedIn has is Sales Navigator that you can also, use a little bit of automation, right? So I consider ChatGPT a tool. Right now, it's not a platform. It's a tool that you can put things in, it spits things out, and then it usually will get you about 70% there. You still need to edit and add things, but you can figure out different scripts that then, again, based on data, based on all of the people who are on LinkedIn, you're a senior at Chapman University, you live in Southern California, these are your professional interests. If I'm a company and I'm looking for potential interns or just Chapman, I don't know, alumni, because I'm starting this big group, I can use that as a tool to basically start the sales lead, I would say, process. One thing I do have to say about automated tools like that, people will DM me personally on LinkedIn often, but here's then what I'm doing. I am sifting through all of the spammy messages that I'm like, okay, well, God bless Sales Navigator helping all these people because I fit into certain categories. So what I recommend all of you guys do, even with automated tools and as smart as Sales Navigator can be for LinkedIn, you also have to remember the human who is receiving these messages. The longer they are, the less personal they are, the more technical in jargon they are, the least likely you are to get a response. It's funny because, I did PR for the Oakland Raiders, right? And Tim Brown, who used to play for the Raiders, sent me a message on LinkedIn. I'm like, I haven't talked to Timmy in a minute. This is so great. I open up the message and I automatically in the first sentence could tell that was not Tim hitting me up. And so I literally was like, okay, I'm actually going to text him and be like, bro, this DM is not the thing. So whatever team is using, LinkedIn to, build this on Sales Navigator, it's not authentic. Right? So your real friends, if they fit into categories that you're trying to hit, you need to also keep in mind the language that you're using, the approach, and be mindful of who's on that list. If it's a true friend of yours, all Tim would have to do is send me 2 sentences. Hey, Nicole, I'm actually thinking about launching this in Southern California. Can I call you? That's all he would have to send. Right? Instead, his marketing team, hey, Nicole, I know we've done work together in the past. Would you? Bro, that ain't Tim. That is not Tim sending me a note. So you want to keep that in mind because, again, a lot of these tools, obviously they wouldn't be around if they weren't working, but you got to know how to make them work for you. And those are just some things that you want to keep in mind, especially on the B2B side. If you're trying to get leads to generate sales and do business with people, remember, you're still doing business with people. So using automated tools, think about the person, the human being receiving that note and what you would actually want to receive using those tools, right? Just trying to make sure. Also, SurveyMonkey. If you're a brand new company, what would the benefit of using maybe a free survey using SurveyMonkey or even Google surveys? I don't know if any of you guys have tried that. What would some of the benefits be for utilizing that tool or those tools?
So like after the fact, if a customer can do something like getting feedback on like their satisfaction with it, that way you know like, oh, this type of customer would buy again, this type wasn't happy, and then you can tell your development team to like fix their product or whatever if it's not good.
Yeah, sure. But, at the end of the day, those would be more reviews, right? And so if you're selling on a platform or maybe someone has gone to your restaurant, places like Yelp or getting reviews after the fact, there are a lot of great tools for doing that. Even before then, surveying your potential market to make sure that before you put out a product, that they're going to like it. So it's almost like dipping your toe, in the water and saying, oh, I'm thinking about designing this. And maybe it's going to be for men between the ages of 20 and 30 who like hiking, right? And here's a tool that I'm thinking, blah, blah, blah. And so you can put out a survey to say, if this was a scenario, would you do this? If we were selling online, would you likely do Y or would you do this? So that before you actually go out, as marketers, you want to make sure that your campaigns are successful because that's what you're being judged on. Return on investment or, key performance indicators, right? Your KPIs are being measured, the ROI is being measured. Basically, the outcome of what you did is going to be measured. So the best way to make sure that the outcome is successful is by making sure that you're tapping in to your market ahead of time to ensure, again, the data. It's like getting primary data from your people. Google surveys and SurveyMonkey are a great, basically free way. Obviously, they have SurveyMonkey has ways of, doing this more on like the pro side of things, depending on how many people you want to ask. It is a great way to make sure that before you pull the trigger, that you are tapping in with your audience so that you can go to your boss, you can go to your partners, you can go to whatever and say, you know what, we surveyed our audience, guys within this pool. They said they're more likely to buy if they see a commercial. We should actually develop a commercial really quick. They're more likely to buy if their friend has already purchased it. Okay, so now, if we're using our CRM, platform and we know that these guys have friends over here, how are we? It will help make sure that before you ignite that campaign, that you're basically double checking with your audience that you're delivering to them in a way they want and giving them what they want. So, so that's just kind of, again, how a lot of these 2.0, right? It's talking with your customer. It's giving and getting, the dialogue going. So any questions about any of the tools or how you might incorporate them into your world? Cynthia, anything that I forgot this time? I think I forgot Sales Navigator last time and I was like, dang it. So you guys got it. Absolutely. I mean, I'm telling you right now, when I started NRPR 10 years ago, I spent money to get a website going, right? I knew I could not, design was not my thing. I spent money having a really great team design my logo and my website. After that, I was the marketing team, right? So I was doing the survey thing. I started my own newsletter. I was using Canva. I was creating posts, getting things going so that people could see, oh, wow, the lights are on. I was doing my own PR, right? I wrote my first press release, made sure that PR Week knew that, vice president of BHI opens up her own firm. So I got some press. And then what did I do? I shared it on LinkedIn. And then honestly, within the first couple of days of opening my firm, I already had clients by using free marketing tools, right? And obviously leading up to that, I had built a strong network, a lot of people who knew of my work, who knew of me. But those were the people I had already connected to on social media. So marketing to them for free, all it did was, oh, that's right. Nicole does this. You know what? I should call her the next time I know someone who needs PR. I didn't have to pay for anything. I was using all of the free tools. Then eventually, as NRPR grew and I had advertising budget, I was then utilizing tools and getting now my team uses the pro Canva account, but I was definitely using the free version. So any of you, I know any of you starting, go ahead. Mhm. You're weak. I love that. Uh-huh.
That you can actually develop your own business and your own pipeline.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping you from creating your own leads for your own. All of these tools are mixed.
That's right. Yeah. And the more you know about the tools and how they can be weaved into different things, again, when you're working with a lot of people who, this is how we've done it, this is what's worked, this is what we like, and you come in and you can rattle things up a bit by just planting new seeds, you become that much more valuable. Like, oh, that's right. That's a really good idea. I completely forgot about SurveyMonkey. We should actually do that before our next campaign launch. Let's send it to these 500 customers and then reward them with a $5 discount if they take the survey. Right? So little things like that can go a long way in helping you make better decisions. So any of you planning to launch a new company soon? Or just, yeah? What's the company? Awesome. Okay, so what brand? Oh wait, you were here that event where the Angels were here, and you kind of did your pitch. Yeah, it was a couple months ago, and yeah, well, a while ago, I guess. You came up and you did the pitch for the luxury and basically the certificate program. Yeah. That's so great. Okay, yeah, that's why I remember your face. So what have you done so far to start marketing or building your brand? Okay. Mm-hmm. And so you haven't started any marketing at all? So do you have a logo? Do you have a website yet? Okay. Have you said anything on LinkedIn about the fact that you're the founder of the company? Okay. And then during the fundraising process, I would imagine due diligence, because you're still brand new, is probably it's not super intricate, but have any of the potential investors asked whether or not you have a customer pipeline already? Yeah. Yeah. And then what have you said in terms of your pipeline? Got it. Okay. So yeah, it might, it could also be good for you to think about which of these tools and how and at what inflection point they might work in your cycle, right? So you're going to have a cycle. You're going to have someone who maybe this is for luxury goods that people are going to buy or already own, getting ready to buy a luxury item. Right. So I'm gonna buy a necklace at Tiffany's, and then what's my cycle with you? Okay. And where did I find you? Or where did you find me? In the store. Okay. And then, so again, going back, then Tiffany's or these jewelry store people, those are going to be your main customers, right? B2B. Got it. So you're B2B to C. Yeah. So then you have to think about, now, if you're going to walk into Tiffany's, how are they going to trust you? Right. So thinking about little things like that, that maybe it's not now, you don't have to solve it right now, but definitely something that you want to make sure that your investors are super clear on how you're going to build and strengthen your pipeline. And one of those things might be, look, I'm gonna old school cold call it. I'm gonna walk into Tiffany's. I'm gonna walk into Cartier. I'm gonna walk into all these places. And here's the marketing materials that we're gonna have. Here's where they would go digitally. These decision makers are still going to look you up online. So you want to make sure that there's at least a little bit of hinting going on of what you are and who you attract on Instagram, right? On places maybe like TikTok, certainly LinkedIn, really beefing that up, because if I need to know that I can trust and maybe sign a contract with you, I need to know that there's a digital footprint that I can count on, and that you're not going to scam me, right? So thinking about little things like that as a brand new company, none of that is going to really cost you anything, but it can earn you a lot in trust. Yeah. So good. Anyone else that is starting a new business or plans to launch one? Tell us your handles. We'll all follow you. Okay. All right. So then we can move on from these Web 2.0 tools and move on to Web 3. Yeah. How much time do we have? Because I want to be able to make sure that there's still. Okay. Perfect. So do any of you, I'm going to stand up because the glare is a little bit. Do any of you guys recognize these logos yet? Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't you start with telling us what that is? Mm-hmm. Definitely. So yeah, what would the draw be if I'm an artist and I'm part of, they obviously have two sides. They're also like a B to B to C, right? The artist is the other business you're doing business with. Mm-hmm. And the big draw too is that it's free. And like SoundCloud is free too, but with SoundCloud, you're still having to push people to SoundCloud to listen to you, to build an audience, but SoundCloud isn't paying you a ton of money, if anything, for people to listen to your music, right? It's just a place for you to go and put your music and be discovered. And I think that now, as we're thinking about Web 3.0, you're finding that companies are trying to, like I said, decentralize things give more opportunities for brands and consumers to make money that's not just reliant on data. You have things like tokens, and we'll dive into that a little bit more with Hive. But like with Audius, it's free, right? If you're an artist, it's a great place to go. The other thing is you are on the blockchain, you're able to calculate things like royalties and how much money you should be making, and or you're getting paid by being on that platform and having people listen to your music, right? And are any of you guys artists by chance? Musicians? No? Okay, but it's definitely a platform I would say to pay attention to, right? And who knows, you never know. There might be, maybe Pandora might come in and buy them, or Spotify might, right? And they might see that they're getting enough traction and doing things a little bit differently. But as you can see, these Web 3.0 companies are just trying to solve newer problems that, Web 2.0 companies came in to solve a group of problems that Web 1.0 basically had. It's like, oh, you're not talking to your customer. Well, how do we do this? Well, now these new companies are looking at everything that's happening within Web 2.0 and saying, how do we help people make more money and protect their data? Because those are really big things: security, data protection, privacy in general, and then just sharing the wealth. How do you make money on your own data? There's some companies that are trying to figure that out for you. How do you own and sell your data and actually know that you can make money from that, and not just Facebook and Google, right? So there are companies still trying to figure that out. None that I would say are super successful with it, but they're trying, right? And so this is what a lot of Web 3.0 is kind of aiming to do, is solve some of those problems. So another one, Hive. Have any of you tried Hive? Used it? No? Heard of it? Okay, so Hive is more like a little bit of a competitor to like Thread and X/Twitter. But with Hive, you can, put up an update. Here, I'm doing this, or share a picture, whatever it is. But with Hive as a brand, if you post something and it gets reposted, you're earning tokens as well as the users. So, and by tokens, these are meant to be sort of a way of monetizing, actually making money, things that translate into money. So again, if I'm a brand new company, I'm a brand who's thinking about getting in front of a new progressive consumer who is, I don't know, very tech savvy and interested in trying different platforms, I might just go on to Hive and see what works. I might put up a couple of photos of my product and whip them up in a really cool, sexy way and see what might become viral on Hive, and earn as the brand, as consumers are earning as they're sharing. So again, it's just a platform where they're experimenting with everybody wins here, right? From the brand to the consumer. So this may take off. It might not. They have a couple million followers already, or users, which is a significant amount considering how many people are on X and Twitter and other social platforms. So one example that I gave in the last class was, I have a really, really great client who got onto TikTok in 2019 and started selling through the live stream, right? Without TikTok Shop. In fact, TikTok called him, and as they were developing TikTok Shop, made a case study about how he was already making millions of dollars selling through his live stream. And they basically launched TikTok Shop. So he made a little less than $20 million selling trading cards on TikTok last year. The year before that, he made $6 million. And before that, a little bit, all before TikTok Shop even became a thing. He literally pioneered that with the trading card space, and now is a partner of TikTok, helping them understand how to then get other brands on it. So imagine testing out a platform with your great idea and just being consistent. A lot of it is really just being consistent. He didn't have to pay TikTok to be on TikTok at all. it's free. And he's been able to sell and make millions of dollars and now, is expanding. So thinking about things like Hive, depending on your I don't know, your customer and whatever, it wouldn't hurt to experiment with something like that, see how it works within your marketing mix. The other thing is Brave. Are you guys familiar with Brave, or Brave Ads is like their ad platform? So Brave, kind of like Google or Safari and, these other search engines. It's more of like a decentralized search engine that, promises better data protection and, is on that tip of sort of decentralization and blockchain. So just another one to just take a peek at. I wouldn't fully recommend relying on it as your main search engine, because again, Google has, the world's information, but you have others that are trying different things. Go ahead. Not yet. Yeah, no, none of my clients yet, but it's definitely something I'm paying attention to, because I think that as it matures, as things get better, again, who knows? Google might take a play from their playbook and figure it out themselves, or somebody else might. But I think where they're going with it is, it's something worth paying attention to, right? But have you had any brands who have been curious about advertising on Brave? Yeah. A little bit of steam, but still. Yeah, I think they're having a hard time marketing themselves and getting in front of brands. And again, that's how they're going to make money, is brands that are going to trust to sort of utilize them and buy ads and, certain things like suggestions or whatever. But I think that there's a lot of companies who really haven't figured out the whole decentralization thing. I feel like there's a lot of companies that are like, we should do the right thing and make, how do I say this? Make data privacy the thing that we stand for. But the problem with that is, if data is what brands are ultimately relying on to make their decisions, then just blockchain and safety isn't going to be enough. But yeah, so to your point, not yet, but still watching it. Yeah. And then Steemit, I can't remember. I put that one on there because my team actually, we were talking about that one. I think, oh, that's right. That's what I did last time. Yes, I wanted to make sure I kept these notes. That's right. It's also a social media platform, but really this one is more for cryptocurrency enthusiasts, right? So people who really understand Ethereum, and yeah, just Ethereum, and then what else? Bitcoin, the new Shiba Inu coin, that's like a spin-off of Dogecoin. So for crypto enthusiasts, it's a great way to get in front of those people. And I think there's also a lot of journalists that include that. And that's why that one got notoriety with my team. They're like, oh, this is interesting. I still, to this day, and still a little bit weary of things like crypto. And I know a lot of people have made money doing it, but I don't think that it's as smooth as it should be. And I'm the type of person who would lose the key and not be able to access my wallet. That would be me. So I told the story to the other class, but in Silicon Valley, there was a guy who got into Bitcoin very early on. Raise your hand if you've heard this story, but he lost his key. He put it on another device, like on his laptop, got rid of that laptop. He was going to get it recycled. And his Bitcoin got up to something like $10 million. And he could not get his key, could not get into his account, and Bitcoin was not letting him in. So I was like, one of the reasons why so much of this is sort of the money and the value keeps going up is because people are losing their keys. And so no one's taking their money out. Hi. Oh, it's heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. So yeah, I think that's why it's like, well, if you've got it figured out, you can make a lot of money because people are losing their keys everywhere. But I do think that there needs to be it just needs to be much smoother. I understand one thing for privacy, security, safety, but then it's like, how do you save me from myself? Right. So yeah, that's really it in terms of, what's going on. I don't think that there are any massive clear winners in Web 3.0 right now. But like I said, things to pay attention to are the words decentralization, what's happening with blockchain, because that's what smart contracts. The other thing too is, yes, AI is being used in all of these places, but really AI is it's a tool, right? It's a tool to help all of these things happen. It's a tool to help aggregate information. It's a tool to help you think of creative ideas or organize things. But when you're thinking about platforms, real entities that you are going to build and drive leads with, where you're going to have a face either as a brand or as an entity, that's sort of what I wanted to make sure that you guys are all clear. Lots of AI tools, but you have to understand where all that content, those things that you're going to be sort of using, where it's going to live and how you're going to use that to create cycles that hopefully lead to sales and, your company's all growing. So, yeah, that being said, hopefully this was helpful and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Brands going to the online space? What do you mean? Yeah. Absolutely. So, have any of you guys heard of Banksy, the artist? So there's one company that I helped. Basically, what they did was they bought a Banksy, meaning they bought an original Banksy image, right? They did that under a nonprofit company, right? And then they divided digitally this real authentic Banksy into 10,000 pieces. They obviously didn't cut it, but they basically said, we're going to sell a piece of this Banksy to you as an NFT, right? So that you are one of the owners of this amazing Banksy portrait. So as you can imagine, just helped develop the campaign around that so that before the pieces of the Banksy went on sale, people could get excited about, wow, I actually own a piece of the real Banksy. Now, the physical piece is always going to live in a museum, right? So the way they did it on the blockchain was that, not one user could own more than 10 pieces and own, too much of it or whatever. So though it lives somewhere, everyone is assigned a number and basically says, I'm number 999 and I own a piece of this Banksy. They sold it. To me, in the back of my mind, I think that in some ways it's really cool and pretty brilliant, right? I might never be able to buy a full Banksy for $10 million, but knowing that I have something that might keep going up in value, right? And if one day I want to sell a piece of the ownership that I have in that Banksy, then that's actually really cool, right? So if I bought it for $1,000, the value of the Banksy keeps going up over time. And then I can sell my one piece for $10,000 instead of the $1,000 that I spent on. So that was actually quite successful for them. And they've gone and bought Picassos and stuff since. So yeah, they're using that money to just like buy really expensive pieces of art and helping people as a community own pieces of it. So you see a lot of companies that are doing that. There's also another company that is selling virtual islands. And because of what's been going on with the economy and just everything happening, I don't see that they're likely going to be successful. Hopefully they sell to someone who can then take it and grow it. But there are a lot of companies trying to figure out the metaverse and I own an island next to here. And I don't know if any of you guys heard of the guy who basically bought a virtual house next to Snoop Dogg's virtual house, but like he's a renter somewhere in Southern California and put like 40 grand to buy a house so that he could say he virtually lives next to Snoop. And I'm like, oh, but like people are spending wild amounts of money in these virtual worlds that I'm not sure. I don't know. I think some companies are becoming successful from it because they're getting people to give them money, but not sure how dangerous some of those things could be in the long run, you know? So, but something to watch for sure. Any other questions?
It's starting to come together, at least on the school side, right? Even here at the center, when I got here, there wasn't much happening. I mean, the first thing I did was pick off a HubSpot. Why? Because I was meeting hundreds of people as part of my new role. I wanted to keep track of all the notes. I wanted to have their email addresses so that I could email them from HubSpot. I didn't need MailChimp,
Yep.
but email from HubSpot, about our event, or hey, your position, or hey, let's do that. So I'm not really selling anything, but I'm still managing all of the relationships in HubSpot. And we use Canva for our flyers. We haven't used SurveyMonkey, but it's actually like on the list to start surveying people that go to events and get their feedback. And so you can see, and all of that has been free.
Yep.
Which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Free is always good, especially if it works.
Yeah, and if you're at your club or you're at your church or whatever, you may have the same needs. So it's not just like, well, I'm never gonna start my business, so I don't have to think about all this, right?
Yeah.
And then one of the fellows that sold his company, he was a competitor to DocuSign called DocVerify. And, a little bit older, and he was like, it's so easy now to start your own company, because you can even, just buy chunks of code too, like where he had to code his software from the start. Like now there's so many tools that make it easy.
Absolutely. It is, it's harder because there's so many things to think about, but easier because so many of those things are free and what audiences are usually on what. So sometimes starting a business and having a digital footprint, doing that for free, it's a dream nowadays, right? Whereas before you start a business and who knows about you? You have to start making real phone calls or seeing people in person.
And I think the only thing we didn't really talk about, you said, get your URL, get your logo, do all that, but also check to make sure that the trademark is clear, that you don't want to build a business a year or two or 10 or 5 years in and find out that you're tripping over somebody else's trademark. So that wasn't the topic of today, the legal aspect, but before you get too far down the road, make sure you clear your company name.
Yeah, and there are some specific some legal there's some like legal houses that for like $1,200 or so in total, they will scour the internet. You'll say, this is the name that I want to use. Is there any potential that they might come after me and send me a cease and desist for either using this logo or using this name? And they will go out and make sure that no matter what, it's like, oh, your name is safe to use and don't worry. But that's always,